the element of any, there's no element nor prospect of a political union. So it has to be that type of approach.
But in Canada, though, those barriers between provinces that still exist, I mean, is this, I remember you saying a few years ago that a crisis permits government to move fast and in a coordinated way. Is this a crisis in Canada? Is it going to help you reduce the barriers between provinces?
Yes, it's a crisis because it's a fundamental change in many of the operating, I was going to say assumptions, but the operating rules of the system. I mean, the reliance on the open global trading system, a reliance and an expectation of further integration, particularly in North America. I mean, that's not going to happen. That doesn't mean there isn't still going to be a fair bit of free trade in North America and cross-investment, but this sort of relentless process of greater integration has reversed. That's a big change. And when you have a big change like that and you had your economy oriented towards that, which ours was, some of your strengths become vulnerabilities, and you have to do big things. And so one of the lessons, we've talked about this, many in the room have lived it. I've certainly, by luck, I would like to say, not because of cause. I didn't cause the crises I've been in. But my experience of being in them is in a crisis, you have to be bold. You have to act big. Uncertainty weighs down activity, and unless you're leading from the center, whether you're a central bank with respect to supporting financial institutions or monetary policy, or you're a government in terms of charting a new course, you need to be bold. And that's why we're looking for scale in terms of diversification of our exports. That's why our budget, which is coming out in 2 weeks' time, is going to have what we call generational investment in Canada on an order of magnitude that really changes the scale of the economy, the ambition of the economy. Of course, it will also, just by its very fact, provide GDP and growth and jobs for Canadians. But as important as that is, more important is going to be a reorientation of the country, and very much an outward-looking orientation that I think is very complementary to ASEAN.
One of the really hard things for the countries in this region is that although, in theory, they would be able to negotiate, for example, with the United States much more strongly if they held together, the new US approach is very much, we'll only negotiate with countries one by one. How can countries in the rest of the world who want to diversify and sustain cooperation, how can they balance the need to line up and do one-by-one deals with the US administration with the need to actually forge relations in their own region with other regions? I mean, it feels like, you know, you've been a bit of an example for European leaders in how to do that, how to sit calmly and negotiate in the White House, but at the same time, you're here, you're pursuing those other kinds of deals. But I just wondered, what's your observation on this for countries in ASEAN who are being pushed to do the one-to-one deal, but who actually need to think about their other trade partners?
Well, I think there's a couple of things, and with respect to the European Union, of course, President Costa is here as well, also participated as a partner of ASEAN in the meetings this morning and through tomorrow. And that'll bring me to a point I'll make in a second. I think a few general points about the situation with respect to the United States. The United States has a new trade policy. It applies to every country, every jurisdiction in the world. We understand that and we respect that. It is a major shift, and the way we're framing it is it's a rupture, not a transition. This is a very big change, almost overnight, and therefore it's difficult to deal with. It can be difficult to deal with, but everybody's dealing with it. That's the first. The second is, if your economy is highly integrated, or certain sectors are highly integrated with the United States, revealed preference, to use a fancy term, is that you will pay a price to keeping access to that market, either in the form of tariffs, changes to some domestic policies, commitments for investment. Different countries have done various versions of that. What you should try to avoid doing, though, is tying your hands about what you can do with other jurisdictions. Because there are a lot more countries by GDP that are willing and keen to continue to have relatively open trade, certainly to have rules-based trade, to respect rules-based trades, to have, and that is happening in parallel to these sharper changes. So you get a sharp change in the relationship with the U.S., as the President has said, and I understand this and respect it. He said it, me sitting next to him, we are going to charge countries for access to the U.S. It's like access to a good country club, I think he might have said, or Costco. To put it the other way, I think he thinks more on country club than Costco. We understand it. It is the premium market. It's the most dynamic economy. You decide what you're willing to pay, but at the same time, you want to be in other clubs. You want to be at other tables. You want to be building that out. And I said I would make a point about the European Union. I think it's quite relevant for ASEAN, or if I may broaden it a bit more towards CPTPP. Some members are part of that. These are two large trading blocs with not identical, but complementary approaches to trade. And there is an opportunity. It's a point I've made. It's a point some others in CPTPP have made. There is a possibility of bringing those closer together, having at a minimum a docking between the two blocks or broader arrangements that there. And that's how you start to rebuild a broader global trading system. You're approaching more than a third of global trade there, potentially 40%, depending on how you do it. Provided you have you've retained that flexibility in order to do that. And as things stand right now, most countries have.
So is this a sort of short-term, medium-term, long-term thing? In the short term, are we going to see countries doing a lot of deals with the United States, but in the medium term, needing reliable partners? If you're going to reorganize your whole economy for trade, you need reliable partners. Yeah. So in the medium term, do you think we're going to see a world which trades a little less with the United States and a little more within regions and between regions?
I think the short answer is yes. I think as well there would be a natural. It's at a minimum it's an acceleration of a trend that the weight of economic activity and dynamism would drive as well. I mean, this is we're in one of the most, arguably the most dynamic regions in the world, and naturally more trade is going to flow to here. I'll give you another example. Just the very fact that one of the themes of this presidency is sustainability. And there's an understanding that moving towards lower carbon energy, lower carbon manufacturing, lower carbon services, etc., will be a driver of competitiveness. It's good for the planet, but it's a driver of competitiveness. There's an understanding of that. And it's not just a theme, but a lot of the discussions are around how do we build that out. That is not a priority at present in the United States, or at least it's not an administration priority in the United States. So naturally, trade is going to shift away by definition. The other reason is from the U.S. for a period of time on that. It's also shifting because it's more expensive to trade with the United States. That's what a tariff does, and that will drive some of that as well. But all of that said, the United States is the world's largest. It is the most dynamic economy. It is a source of constant innovation, and everyone, very much Canada included, is going to want to be active there.
And look, you've long championed kind of sustainability in a number of roles, advising the UN, advising prime ministers, etc. Are you optimistic or about the sustainability agenda holding? I mean, the world as I see it, the backtracking of the United States has led a lot of companies to say, actually, let's slow down on the sustainability stuff. Let's slow down on the net zero stuff. Are you seeing that? Is it harder to be an advocate for net zero?
Well, I've got a different job now, which is to advocate for Canada and to manage for Canada. What I think you're seeing is, and this is in terms of our approach, you're seeing a sharp move towards performance over targets, investment and action over sort of prohibition. So in other words, and I'll give an example on that, which is, I referenced earlier, Canadian LNG and the opportunity that's there. If we went back 5 years, there would have been a greater focus on